All right, we're back. Episode 2 of the Goodness Podcast. Only the best guests around. Chanel Sinclair, we're very happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
It's good morning. It's a little bit rainy morning, which is not unusual here.
I love it.
And you love it, yeah.
I do. I might be the only person that lives here that loves it, but I love it.
Well, I think that's a little much. There's a few people. There's a few Portlanders who love it.
Yeah, I think so.
But, and worth noting that you've been a desert dweller in Phoenix, Arizona for basically your whole life up until now, recently relocating to Portland. So the rain is especially a nice change for you, I would imagine, after all the desert years.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about all the things, see how far we get. We'll have you back regardless. Even if we got through all the things, we want to have you back. But
thank you.
I know we're not going to get through all the things. So we want to talk about your whole journey, all the great things you're doing leading up till now, which is your current wonderful passion project is The Fates Bread and Bottle Co.
Yep.
In Selwood. It looks like it's going amazingly. Such a beautiful space that you've created.
Thank you.
So we'll talk about all that. We want to throw it back, as we always do, to hear the whole story. So tell us, you were born and raised in Phoenix area, or Arizona in general?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Tucson, and then I left when I was 15. I moved up to the Phoenix area, and I've been there ever since. Got married insanely young at 19 and had 2 amazing babies, now adults, and have been co-parenting them with their dad all this time until they were old enough to fly the nest. And then it turns out I was the first one to fly the nest and come here. So unexpectedly, but yeah, it's been
how the roles change.
Yeah.
Over time.
Yeah. So it's awesome. I miss my kids. They decided to stay in Phoenix, but we talk just about every day, and they're absolute badasses. They both work in the restaurant industry, and they're both roommates. They got a house together. They're best friends. So that makes me feel a little better about not being together every waking moment, because, you know, you can't have your mom breathing down your neck for the rest of your life. So
it's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Despite the fact that we're best friends. So
I'm sure they miss you.
Yeah. Yeah. They'll come up soon.
So they're following your footsteps, working in restaurants and amongst food and hospitality industry.
Yeah.
So obviously that's what you're doing now, and that's what you've done for a long time.
Yes, that's what I've done forever in many iterations, as we have spoken on before.
Exactly. We've had some conversations recently about these topics, and so we're going to go back to these conversations.
Yeah.
So from a very, 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 very early age, you said even 5 years old, you have memories of baking, cooking, food, and gathering around food with primarily your grandmother.
Yeah. So that was my favorite thing as a kid. I had one of those little plastic fake Fisher-Price kitchens with the stove and the fridge and the microwave, and I would create menus and go around to all the whoever would pay attention to me, and
family members.
Whoever was gathered at Grandma and Grandpa's house at the time. And I would take their orders and then go prepare all these pretend meals with whatever plastic accoutrements I had in the fake kitchen, and serve up all these meals and create a whole experience that way. And then I also would, Grandma would always have ingredients waiting for me from recipes that I would choose the visit before. And I would then come spend my time with them and make cheesecakes and Irish soda bread and soups and stews and all kinds of whatever I felt like making. And that just brought me so much joy. And it was so beautifully supportive of her. Like, I see now what she was doing for me all these years later, and especially as a mother too. You know, she's definitely a mother figure for me. And she knew that my home life wasn't great, so she provided a little creative outlet and respite and support that I desperately needed, and it definitely did the trick. It planted a seed of creativity and being able to turn my passion into nurturing other people who need it as well. At least I hope so.
Yeah, it does. Definitely seems like you're being successful and have been successful in that.
I try.
Wow. I mean, obviously it's incredible to think about how, I mean, obvious in ways, but cool to reflect on how a single person and a single person's actions can have lifelong impacts on what you do, and then obviously how you affect other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's that Rudyard Kipling story, The Butterfly That Stomped, or, the ripple effect when you skip a stone in a lake and those ripples just go out forever. It's like one butterfly can change an entire ecosystem if it just changes its behaviors, or so yeah, one person, one kindness, one loaf of bread can change everything, and it does. So it's just the intention with which you give it, which is very important to be careful about the intention you put out into the world, because it really does matter. Those little interactions you have with people, you never know how much it means. I don't think I was ever able to properly express to her how much she changed my life. I don't think I even knew how much she changed my life until recently, even, and just really reflecting on the gift of that support that I had and the inspiration for how I do my life now. So, I mean, I carry her with me every day. I mentioned earlier, I wear her rings every day. I have her wedding band, and then she had an emerald ring designed because it's my birthstone, but she wore it all the time. So that's how close we were, nice. So yeah, I have her with me every day. So.
And so her giving so much to you and influencing you so much directly translates into you wanting to pass on that level of influence and care and thoughtfulness.
I think
you seem so filled with that desire.
I am. I mean, and I always have been a nurturer. I'm, as mentioned, like the oldest of 8 children, and also, was a young mother. And I also just really love people. I have lots and lots of love in my heart, and I don't know where it comes from, but it's there. So I have lots to give. So, but yeah, that legacy of care, I definitely learned through not only being on the receiving end, but observing who she was as a person and how giving and nurturing she was to her neighbors. And she'd always bring meals to people, even though she was not a good cook. Not to speak ill of those who have passed, but Grandma was not a good cook. But she was such a love. So yeah, it's a good ethos to have, and something that just is the only way I know how to be.
So you said basically each week you would do a recipe and you would choose the recipe for the next week?
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily like weekly visits, but often visits. But yeah, she would have me go through those old recipe boxes where you could order the packs of recipes through the mail, and like you'd pick these catalogs, or old like Betty Crocker recipe books. And yeah, I would just pick what I was excited to make the next time, and those ingredients would be waiting for me.
So then you'd be looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It just made me think of this thing I heard actually on another podcast I was listening to recently, about that all people need 3 things: somebody to love, something to do, and something to look forward to.
That's really true.
So that just made me think about the looking forward to part, especially as a young person who maybe had some rough parts of their childhood experience.
Yeah, to have
especially
some
important.
Joy. Yeah, absolutely. And I see now too, as I'm just thinking about it now, how that assists me to this day in preparing for service. And prior, when I was doing pop-ups and private dinners and supper clubs, that preparation ahead of time, that preconceived, okay, I'm going to make this dish. I got to wrap my mind around it, my energy around it, be prepared to walk into the kitchen and get it done, and stay motivated, stay focused on that recipe and that task at hand, because that's my joy for the day. And that kind of process applies every single day now that I open the shop. That's what a chef does. So yeah, she trained me. That was my culinary education, I guess.
So this may sound a little redundant, but do you remember, have childhood memories of the feeling you got from serving other people?
Oh, definitely.
And like, you understand how that's a little different, like, because it's one thing obviously now to reflect on that, but like, do you remember in that moment what you were feeling that was so gratifying? And further, let me go a little further, that were you getting, I mean, I guess in some way you could say we like when we get something in return to some level, of course. We get some gratification, but were you consciously responding to something you were receiving? Like, I serve people food and I see them eat it and they're happy, and so then that's my reward, and that keeps me going and inspired to make more food, for example. Yeah. Or I feel like another option is, and it's not, one is not better than the other, of course, necessarily, but there is also the potential to just love serving food no matter the result, right?
Yeah.
You get that distinction of...
Yeah, that's a very thoughtful two-part question. Yeah, yeah.
Let's go to good old two-part.
Yeah. Make it more confusing and difficult to answer, why don't you? I know.
was trying to trip you up.
Yeah. Won't work, because I would say yes to both. I experience both. Yeah. For me, selfish is not necessarily the correct term, but it is. It is what I do is very self-fulfilling and self-gratifying, because I get absolute delight and joy out of just preparing food. That's my favorite part, is the prep, is rocking music, being in my own world, and just slicing, dicing, sauteing, rising, mixing, planning, conceiving of what it is that I'm going to make, R&Ding recipes. Like, that's alchemy to me. That's magic. That's my cauldron. Those are my potions, And even as a kid, yeah, it was just fun for me. Like, some kids like to go to the trampoline park or go play with their friends. I wanted to bake cheesecakes and perfect it so it wouldn't crack on the top. So I would make the same cheesecake visit after visit until I got it right. And that made me happy. And then getting to share slices of that finished product with those that I love, or with neighbors or whatever, or being able to make a meal for the entire family to sit down and enjoy, and picking the plates and setting the silverware and picking flowers in the neighborhood and putting them in vases. Like, I love serving. It brings me joy, yes, and it also brings me joy to know that somebody feels loved and nourished because of something that I got to do for them that they may have never received in the way that I can do it, and they deserve it. So yeah, it's all of the above. Food and hospitality to me is love. Service is love. And it's why, when you walk into a restaurant and people are rude or unkind or not happy to be there, it's such a bummer, because to me, that's the ultimate place of joy and of actual communal love and the ability to express that. And I get that if you're just an employee at a coffee shop and you're having a shit day and you don't want to be there. I understand that. But like, if it's your place and your passion, people should taste that love every single day and every single plate. And, sometimes we lose the plot. So for me, yeah, even making fake alphabet soup in my fake pot on my fake stove when I was a little kid still brought me joy, because I saw the adults that I was serving smiling and having a good time and putting up with my silliness, and it made me happy. So, yeah.
Love seeing these influences come, or how they all came together and overlapped and brought you to where you are today. So part of that was, you said you were the oldest of 8 siblings. So you had this sort of ingrained nurturing vibe going on.
Yeah.
Wanting to care for this flock of siblings.
Granted, it wasn't, they slowly accumulated. So it wasn't always that many kids. And it was 8 of us total. So I have 7 siblings.
Yes. But no.
But yeah. Yeah, but definitely always nurturing and mom number 2 and taking care of them as best I could.
And you said that throughout some of these difficulties in childhood, often the happiest times were when you were focused on food and
absolutely
and coming together around meals and baking and all these things.
Yeah.
So you can, it's just cool to see how the pieces, all the web links together.
Yeah, I've definitely thought about that a lot as I've built my career around food for the past 20 years in many different iterations, whether photographing it or chefing it or whatever. Yeah, I definitely realized the psychology of that, like possibly in somewhat of an unhealthy way in some regards. You know, you have fight, flight, or fawn, and I would always go to fawning. I would always go to just, if I nurture people, they'll be happy first, and then bad things won't happen. And not to get super dark, but I also think it's good to be real. Like, people go through terrible, terrible things, and it's very important to be aware of how that affects us. So, yeah, I would find that people would be happy when they were eating and when they were served. And it just takes you out of all the trauma and the drama for a minute, because you're just having a communal moment. You're being nurtured. You're enjoying something. The holidays were always a pretty special time too, because we would be, we'd make homemade hot chocolate and caramel corn and all the cookies and the Christmas twinkly lights, and everybody was in a good mood. And so it's that's joyful for me to now get to create on a daily basis, not as a trauma response, but as just a way of life that I deserve and that everyone around me deserves. So it's awesome that I get to have that privilege of creating that based on what I've been through and what I've learned through surviving my life. So,
and yes, the space at the Fates in Sellwood is so beautiful.
Thank you.
And
thanks.
Clearly has been highly curated with your sense of style.
It's my home. Yeah. It's I put everything from not everything, but everything from my home in Phoenix into a U-Haul and brought it up to the shop. So yeah, it's it's
very beautiful.
You're in my home.
It's so the epitome of cozy. You walk in and it feels so warm and inviting.
Thank you. That means a lot.
So yeah, such a noble and beautiful cause, such a great thing to bring into the world.
Thank you.
So thank you for doing that and coming to our city and adding more love and beauty and spaces for people to connect and
thank you.
Have all these good things.
Yeah, it's definitely it's not a business to me, and I didn't want to come into a community that was new, and just start stepping on toes. And, community is very important to me to respect and to support. And so the magic and the unfolding of that whole journey is undeniable, and I had to just keep going with it. But I also wanted to be very careful to make sure that what I was doing would actually be of service to all the people there. So far that seems to be the feedback, and it's humbling and joyful for me to have the opportunity to have such a space. And I've been told actually by a few people that are my regulars now, which I can't believe I get to say that so soon. It makes me very emotional, actually.
It's beautiful.
But they've told me that it feels like home to them, and they, some people have told me that I feel like a mom to them. And it's a privilege and a huge responsibility to curate and protect a safe space for everybody. And I do that to the best of my ability. So as much as I can.
So far you're doing great.
Thank you. I tried.
More than great.
Thank you.
All right. So we're going to lay out the rest of the podcast.
Okay.
I just want to make sure we hit some key things.
Let's do it.
Key things.
Okay.
So the first one is I want you to talk about, the topic of big changes. Clearly you made a massive life change.
Yeah.
So I want to go over exactly what that life change was, how that went about.
Yeah.
And then talk about that. I want to talk about once you got to Portland, clearly we've talked a lot about what a wonderful and supportive place this can be, and lots of people with a lot of great creative energy and desire to support and nurture and be just great members of the community to each other. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about that experience, because I experienced that when I came to Portland 14, 15 years ago.
Awesome. Yeah.
And I feel like you have experienced just now in the last year moving here. So clearly that spirit somehow has sustained itself and continues on. Yeah, I guess those are the main two for now.
Okay.
So
probably best to keep us focused.
So the big change.
Yes.
The big change.
The big change.
You were so clear. Yeah, we're not going to get into all the food and hospitality things you did in Phoenix and all these years in down in the desert lands. But so you were on a trip to Portland. You were visiting here.
Yeah, it was an exploratory trip. I didn't have a whole lot of business booked for the summer, and things were tight. I was kind of at the point where I was like, I don't even know if I can do this anymore and keep my lights on. You know, the pop-ups were becoming a profit loss for me, and it was exhausting just loading catering in and out of my car, you know, and just doing so much work for very little return. And in the summertime in Arizona, everybody leaves anyways because it's way too hot for life. Like, nobody should live there. It's insanely hot. Yeah. It's a beautiful place though, don't get me wrong. But so yeah, I just was like, you know what, I'm just gonna take a little road trip, head up the coast. And I brought my son with me for part of the trip because we were just like, you know, let's just try to change everything. We had all been through a lot the year previous. Won't go into that at all, but it was a really, really hard and heavy year. And I just felt in my spirit we needed a change. We needed just a complete change. And so I was like, let's start with this. This feels right. I don't know why it feels right, but let's go. And we've been visiting Portland and Seattle and California for years. So it wasn't anything new, and I always felt drawn here. But I was like, I'll probably retire there. You know, I'll find some cottage clinging to the side of a cliff and just be the crazy old village crone someday.
Covered in moss.
Yeah. Funnily enough, the house I just moved into has moss all over the roof. It's a total witch's cottage. It makes me so happy. But yeah, we took this little road trip, and so many things aligned to push me into, Woodstock, but just a few moments away from where I ended up opening my business. And I found this amazing little furnished month-to-month rental. And
hang on a second.
Yeah.
You found this rental previous? You were thinking about moving? Or?
No. So what happened was I was supposed to spend some time in Waldport, which is a few hours back down the coast. Yeah. Ended up needing to leave earlier than expected. And so I was kind of on the hunt for being in Portland a couple weeks earlier and found this place. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just do it. Let's just stay for a month. It's perfect. It's furnished. We don't have to worry about it. It's not... You know, it's not a hotel. It's this cute little spot.
So this was still not
still vacation.
Your mind. Yeah, this is we're staying for a month.
Yes,
check it out for fun. But at this point, you were not thinking about any immediate moves.
No, this is July and August, kind of transitioning into. Yeah, I was like, let's just stay. Well, my landlord, who is now my friend and an amazing person, he needed to know because it was at the end of the month that I found this place. He's like, you can have it for the month, but I need to know if I should put it up on the market for the next month. I need to already start marketing for it. So I kind of had to make a decision then. And there was something again in my heart that was just like, no, you're not done here yet. Just do 2 months. Just fuck it. Do 2 months. Let's go. So I agreed to 2 months. And hit the ground running. Walked everywhere, went to all the restaurants, all the spots, made all the friends, and didn't want to leave. And there was one day that I actually was doing a photo shoot for a friend of a friend, and I was like constantly pondering, what do I do? Like, should I get some temporary work here and then go back to Arizona and try to book some more pop-ups and get my supper club rolling again? Or do I stay here even longer and just, work at a dive bar or something? Like, there's just so much uncertainty and unrest, and I just didn't know what to do. And it was actually heavy. It was stressful because I had no answers. I had no security. And after that day that I was doing a photo shoot, that little voice, I don't have the voices, but that little voice in my head was like, don't go home yet. Don't go back. Go find a little wine bar and go sit and write. Like that's what I need to do today. Okay. All right. While I was driving unsafely, I pulled up Google Maps and I was like trying to look up wine bars in the area that I could just veer off into. And it was Maeve, which is what my space was previously. And it was this cute little cocktail wine bar. And I walked in and immediately felt like I was home. And I was like, that's weird. I mean, it's cute and I love it, but why do I feel so different walking into this little place? So I sat on the back patio. It has an amazing patio, which I'm very excited about this spring. Got some gorgeous cocktails. Talked with the owner, Kendra, also a friend, also a super rad human, and found out that they were selling the place. I was like, oh man, like my time at this point was about to run up on my rental. I was faced with, okay, I got to go home. Like I'm living on my credit cards at this point. I haven't had income for months. Savings is dwindling quickly, not ideal, but also was the right thing to do. And so I was talking with her. I was like, oh man, like my favorite spot that I just found is going to be sold and closing. That's such a bummer. Oh, well, I wish you luck, whatever. The next morning, eyes open, doom scroll begins, and pull up Facebook, and Marketplace practically opens itself, and their ad for sale popped up. I cannot even make this up. And I looked at it and I was like, that's the wine bar I was just at yesterday. And I looked at the numbers, I looked at the details. I was like, there's no way. Is that like quarterly? Is that what they want? Like, what is this number? Like, because I could do that. I could do that. I could do that. And yes. I just shot her a message. I'm like, hey, I was just in there yesterday. I'm just a person. I'm just a chef, my mom. I'm just on vacation, but I'm just really curious and can't shake this. Would you be willing to answer a few questions and talk with me? She's like, sure, let's meet tomorrow. So we ended up having to reschedule, go in there a couple days later, ask all my questions, get all my answers. And there was somebody already meeting with her before me. And this is important. There's somebody meeting with her before me. And there was somebody that showed up 15 minutes early and was nudging in on my time as well after me.
Don't encroach.
I know, but I will never forget this feeling. And this is how I knew that everything had aligned. I remember feeling with both of those people, get out of my house. This is mine. Okay. Like with kindness and love in my heart.
Please get out of my house.
Pretty please. Politely. You can come back when you're invited. But no, I just remember feeling like not a panic, but a protective feeling of like, this is supposed to be mine and I need to do whatever it takes to make it mine. And
glad you didn't have to wrestle them. Right?
Yeah. I was tempted. I was ready.
I'm sure you were ready.
I was wearing my shit kicking boots that day. I was ready. So that kind of kicked off a domino effect of putting a lot of things and decisions in place to make it happen. And I had to talk with my kids. My son at that point had decided to head back to Phoenix because he had to get back to work. And that was the hardest part. That was my only hitch was them and my close chosen family back home. It's just like, I can't leave everybody, but I have to. It's time. And it's going to be really hard, but it's what's right. So that set a bunch of things in motion, and I just followed my heart with every step of the way, what felt right, based on healing a lot of my relationship to myself and my own instinct that had been broken all along the way through, abusive situations and so on. And just learning to listen to instinct and learning to manifest abundance and opportunity, and to pay attention to that alignment every step of the way. So that big change might seem crazy, and it is, just uprooting my entire life like that, but it's right, and it has been supported and for lack of a better term, blessed every step of the way. Really has. Again, circling back to that supportive community that you experienced when you first moved here, and what I've experienced. Like I felt like I was home because the people here are nurturing and protective of each other and inclusive and safe and kind. Obviously, you encounter shitty people wherever you go. They're just hurting people that haven't healed that part of themselves, and they still need and deserve love. But for the most part, I've experienced nothing but kindness and big open hearts. And even with the owners of Maeve, both it's two sisters that own it, they made the process possible by helping me, answering questions, being kind and open. And shout out to Kendra, because she's my absolute hero. She answered probably 600 questions in the first 2 weeks, because I also had to learn Oregon laws, get set up as a business entity here, figure out
a few things to do.
Work my way through the OLCC for my liquor license and all of that, and none of it was awful. It was just a lot to learn. And I just found nothing but kindness and support every step of the way, even from the people who work at the OLCC and the, Business Bureau. And great. I would take time to find out how they were doing and, keep it to, again, it's not business to me, it's personal. And there are always people on the other end of every business interaction. And so, sometimes people just need to be treated like people. And I found that in return.
So weird.
Yeah, I know. Who knew?
People with love and compassion and respect.
Yeah. So
evoke the same from them. Wow.
Yeah, it's wild how that works.
Wild stuff.
So that's kind of full circle how that came about. I'm very lucky to have found such an incredible community that's received me with kindness and support, and I do my best to reciprocate that every day. It's a privilege. So, yeah.
It seems like you're doing it well.
Try it. Thank you.
Deeply passionate about that.
Yeah.
So one of the ways that Portland has supported you was there was an article in Eater PDX, or maybe multiple now, but there was an initial one. How did that come about? Was it a surprise to you, or did they reach out to you, or?
No, it was a surprise that they reached out to me.
Oh, yes.
Rebecca, I think it was Rebecca that wrote it. They reached out to me and asked a few questions, and the article went live a few days later, and I thought it would just be like a little blip, like, oh yeah, little bread shop opening soon, whatever, or wine bar, whatever. And yeah, it was such a thoughtful article, very humbling, and very grateful for it. So yeah, that's brought a lot of people in to the shop. They're like, oh, I read the article about you. Like, oh, that's so weird. But thank you. So yeah, there's been a couple. There was a little feature that cracked me up. It was like the hottest new restaurants opening, one of those like top 10, 20 lists, whatever, with little blurbs on each one. And the opening line was bread and wine. What is this, church? And I cracked up because I'm the most heathen person with a huge church background. So
worship.
I know, right? Hail Satan. Not really, but it was funny because that's my entire story and background is being in church. So it just completely cracked me up. I'm like, oh, you have no idea. This is a new kind of church, that's for sure. So,
and it is worth noting, which also shows the Portland spirit that we've been talking about, is we were connected because of the Eater article.
Yeah.
So I randomly saw that, as I was scrolling. I don't always call it doom scrolling.
Yeah,
sometimes, it's not always. Of course, that's what it is. But yeah, saw that on my feed, and as you know now, that I'm a passionate focaccia maker.
Yes.
And eater.
Yes.
And I saw this headline about this new spot and this woman slinging her homemade focaccia at this new wine bar. I was like, oh, that is awesome. I need to connect with this person.
Yeah.
So I shot you a message, slipped into your
you did.
DMs.
Yeah, you did.
Said, what up? We should meet up and talk focaccia.
Mm-hmm.
And we did. And we became good friends.
Yep.
So again, I think, I mean, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I think that does show the, this vibe that is strong in Portland.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is people wanting to connect and support each other.
Yeah, community is very fertile here.
Yeah.
And it seems to come very naturally, like, especially being in such a walkable place. You know, you see people's faces, you interact with them, walking dogs, passing on the sidewalk. We're all in close proximity, and we're all on foot. We're all together in all of this. And so it fosters that community naturally, I feel, and it's glorious. I love it. So, yeah.
Yeah, the whole, obviously, goodness as a part of the wellness movement for all. The whole idea of that, of course, is that we have so many good things in Portland of all sorts at a world-class level, on par with huge, really big cities, and yet we're a very small city. So like literally, like part of what you're saying is the actual physical size of this place and the density of the good things make it especially fertile to connect all those dots.
So much goodness here. So much goodness. So many amazing people. Yeah, it's every day here feels like just like a holiday to me. It feels like a gift.
I think you would have found the bright sides no matter what, but I will say I do feel like you have come, or you're really enmeshing yourself here at a good time, because it really feels like, post-pandemic, after some of the ups and downs we've all experienced and Portland experienced.
Yeah.
It really feels like a lot of that energy and momentum is back in a way that it hasn't been back for a number of years.
That's good to hear.
So it's a good time right now.
Yeah, it feels like it. It really does.
So one thing I want to talk about is, which I believe you have, it seems pretty obvious, an abundance mentality.
Yes.
Very positive minded, and thinking about how we can all win and benefit, and focusing on that stuff as opposed to being competitive or, operating with a scarcity mindset.
Right.
So I bring that up because obviously you're this amazing baker and you're baking this great focaccia, and that's part of so you have a wine bar, you serve wine, you serve drinks of all kinds, you serve different food items. Focaccia is just part of that, but that is one of your specialties. So that said, as we've talked about a number of times before, close to you in Selwood, there are a number of other places that also serve focaccia.
Yeah, Focaccia Flats is what we're very quickly becoming known as.
Like there's like 2 or 3 other spots.
Yeah, there's Monalupo, there's Sebastiano's, I think there's a couple other spots that serve focaccia.
Flats. That sounds like a neighborhood I want to move to immediately.
I live in it, and it's glorious. Everybody's amazing, and they're all different styles of focaccia too. Like there's room for everybody at the table. So
exactly. So that's amazing. Obviously what I was getting at is some people would, or some business owners would, have that be a source of great, anxiety for them, in that thinking that if there's so much focaccia, they're going to lose out, and they're not going to be able to survive, and it needs to be competitive. And then the other hand, of course, is the abundance mentality and thinking that everyone can win, and we can support the whole community and everyone can benefit. Yeah. So clearly, as I said, that's more of where you fall.
We'll try to, for sure.
Do you find that hard to do? Is that an easy mindset to stick with for you, or talk to me about that a little bit?
Yeah. No, it's not difficult at all for me. I feel the statement "rising tides," rise all ships. Like there's, I frequently hashtag community over competition. I've experienced a lot of competition in the food industry, especially in Arizona. There's a lot of ego and abuse and loss of the vision, loss of the plot, and especially as a woman in this industry. It's tough. It's really tough out there. And I just believe that if you enter the scene with love and passion in your heart and a desire to lift and support people, that it makes everything taste more delicious, and it makes everything better, and it supports everybody. There's a bunch of focaccia in my neighborhood. And I honestly didn't set out to be a focaccia destination. Like, that article kind of set it in stone for me.
It is funny. Yeah, that really
that kind of like
painted you as this focaccia guru.
Yeah, I actually started the Fates Bread Co. with Dutch oven breads, and back in Phoenix, and I was doing grilled cheese pop-ups on that bread. And then the focaccia was kind of a secondary accidental discovery, and I was loading my focaccia with bunches of cool flavors and stuff as well, and then turning that into some fine dining inspiration, and then it just kind of took off from there. So, and focaccia is just very therapeutic and fun to make, and so it brings me joy, so I continue to do it. But I am hoping to bring other breads, but as long as I get to bake and cook and provide food for people. Yeah, so, but to me, it's like I had to close on Valentine's Day because that day snowed, and being from Arizona, I wasn't about to drive around and all over town, and I had a bunch of errands to run and ingredients to get, and my shipments were delayed, my deliveries, and I was like, you know what, nah, I'm just gonna love myself today and just not. And so I posted about all the other places that are open, because that's amazing. Like, there's Corkscrew is a wine bar right around the corner, and it's awesome. I go there, I sit there and I drink. Like, I love having places that aren't my place. You need to have variety in life. That's why there's thousands of spices and different kinds of breads and varietals of wine and kinds of people. There's a little bit of something for everybody, and that can change day to day. I change every single day. I'm a new person every morning when I wake up, and have evolved, hopefully, for the better each day. And so why wouldn't I want to have a different experience and go eat somewhere new, or make a new friend, or have a new experience? So no, it's not difficult to want to support other people. And I don't feel like I've come on the scene as like this amazing, maverick of the bread world. Like,
Get out of my way.
I know, like, I just do what I do.
Elbows.
Yeah, that's so not worth it. I bake bread and I make little bites of food, and I welcome people into my establishment to drink beautiful wines that I'm so privileged to pour. I've met many of the winemakers that I have on my menu, and so for me, it's just a continuation of community. That's all. So
we're unfortunately getting towards the end.
Here
which
we go.
Of course has, I'm thinking of all the many things I wanted to talk to you about that we're not quite able to get to today. You did touch or say one thing that made me think of one of those topics, which is you talked about this recent choice to close the shop, and you said, use the expression, love and support yourself and do what you needed to do for you, and make decisions you felt were safe, traveling around in the snow, and do all these things. So I feel like while a culture, our collective culture in this country, at least, of self-care has a long way to go, I do feel like that is more common these days than, or probably, more prevalent now than ever before, a culture of that being okay to say, hey, I'm a business owner and I'm going to be closed today.
Yeah.
And not only can I say that, but I can take it a step further and promote other businesses that I know are open.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure there's some people who would say they don't agree with that philosophy or something, but that's beside the point. So I think it's healthy. And so that was all said to touch on the fact that I want to talk to you more in future episodes about self-care, about mental health, which we've both talked about in our many conversations, and how important that is.
Yeah, you cannot pour from an empty cup in business, in life. So it's a practice that I set out to stay committed to as I open this business. The restaurant industry especially can run people into an early grave, literally and figuratively, and it's not worth it food is everything to me and community is everything to me, but running myself ragged isn't worth any of that. So if I have to take a step back, I will, and I do, so that I can better love people the next day from sleep and nourishment and joy. So yeah, I do my best to take care of myself so I can take care of other people, and also hopefully remind them to take care of themselves so they can take care of other people. And it just continues on in that way. So yeah.
It's like it's all connected.
Weird.
It's like it's a
weird how that works.
Giant reciprocal chain of cause and effect. Well, I think that's a great place to end, sadly. I want to keep talking. We could go on for hours.
Yeah.
But yes, you cannot pour from an empty cup. Mm-hmm. So that touches on so much of the work I'm trying to do, we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Self-care, compassion, doing good things for ourselves and others, for mental health, for our physical health, for all the things. So also, we've talked about the need for community and connection and to fight this loneliness epidemic, which is, as I read more, is a very real thing that has very real physical health impacts.
Indeed.
So that was all to say that the Fates is a great place to go find care and compassion and community and a beautiful space where you can feel love and being cared for and the highest levels of hospitality. So
thank you.
We'll be promoting Fates. We're so happy for you. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you, friend. And
I would to have you here today.
I would love to have you and your project and your vision in my space, as we've talked about, and find ways to connect with community the beautiful way that you do on a similar vein. So it's a joy and an honor to witness what you're building, and I believe in that very much. And it's such an honor to be your friend and to watch you make this world a better place with this work that you're doing as well. So thank you for today and just for you. You're awesome, and I believe in this very much. So it's an absolute honor to be here today.
Well, we're doing similar work.
Yeah.
So it's a pleasure to share the space with you.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. Hope you have a glorious day.
Thank you.
And we will be talking more soon and talking about the Fates more soon and goodness and all the things.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye.
Bye.